Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Tittle Tattle Tarot. It's Georgie. And on the table today, I have Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. And this is going to be a very hypothetical question, or questions. I want to know about Catherine of Aragon's very first marriage to Henry's brother, Arthur, the Prince of Wales. There are things that I want to know about that marriage and things that I want to know about the marriage to Henry. So I'm going to use the deviant moon for this particular reading because a beautiful imagery, very quirky, and we will just see what the cards can tell us. So let's get rid of those two. So I want to know, first of all, about Catherine of Aragon and Prince Arthur, the Prince of Wales, their marriage. They were both only 15 when they got married, and Catherine had come over from Spain, and it was a fantastic pairing, absolutely brilliant, loads of money involved there. And I just want to know whether at 15, when they got married, whether that marriage was actually consummated. Now, Arthur came out of the bedchamber the following morning and bragged and said that yes, he'd done that. Catherine always maintained that it hadn't happened. And shortly after the wedding, about 4 months later, they were both terribly sick. I'm not sure what the illness was. I don't know whether it's ever been confirmed what the illness was, but Arthur unfortunately died and Catherine nearly died. She was incredibly ill, but she pulled through. So, it was only 4 months after the wedding. So it really is, did they actually consummate this marriage, both at 15? He says yes, she says no. And this really is quite a crucial question for what happened later on in Catherine's life and Henry's. Okay, so I want to see what the cards say. Historians say different things. I don't say anything because I don't know very much about history, but the cards will tell me. And that's the important thing. I don't have any thoughts about this, so I'll be very interested to see what the cards say. So, did Prince Arthur and Catherine of Aragon, did they consummate their marriage? We've got Ace of Cups, which is not looking... No, I don't believe they did. Just with those two cards, I really don't believe they did. I think that anything that Prince Arthur might have said was sort of bragging rights on that one, really. Just like a typical 15-year-old boy saying that he'd done something that he hadn't actually done. Knight of Cups, your Knight of Cups the right way up, I would have said yes. They did. They did everything that a husband and wife would do on their wedding night. And he was incredibly tender and passionate, and it was wonderful. And if the Fool had been that way up as well, I would have said yes, and it was a brand new start for both of them. And it was this wonderful journey that they were both going to take together. But we've got two in reverse here. I'm not saying that he wasn't passionate, that he didn't care for her, or that he didn't have the love for her at all, but I don't believe it happened that night. And I don't actually believe, from these cards, I don't believe it happened at all. They both fell ill so soon after the wedding, and they must have been ill, for quite a while. So I don't believe this happened. No, it was no new start. There wasn't anything birthing and anything, going on to a new stage of life for them. So I think it's fairly safe to say that the marriage was not consummated. And then later, years later, really, when Catherine of Aragon, I mean, she was 15 when this took place. 4 months later, she's a widow. And it wasn't until she was 23 that she married Henry. And Henry was only 17 at the time. So, he was only like a 10-year-old when all this happened. So, she married him when she was 23. So already she's quite a bit older than him. And I want to know, was Catherine the one true love of Henry's life? I mean, he had all those 6 wives. was she the love of his life? They were married for 23 years. It was a long, long time. Was she actually the love of his life? Catherine of Aragon treated her very badly at the end. That wants to talk. The emperor, there he is. There's Henry. Twos are unions. Also choices, making a choice in life. He chose to marry her, or he chose to be with her, or it was chosen for him, should we say. It's all choices. She was chosen for him. I don't think there was much of a choice as far as he was concerned, you know. Page of Cups. He was very young when he married her. And what else we've got here? Queen of Swords. And the Lovers. Gosh, quite a few popped out there. Do you know, I believe that she was. Let's just have a little look at this. Was Catherine the love of his life? Well, here's the emperor. Here he is in all his finery, Henry VIII. As far as choosing her, no, he didn't choose her. It wasn't really originally a marriage of love, because it was a marriage of wealth and a marriage that suited both royal houses. So, you know, she was chosen for him, but also remember, he'd known her since he was a very sort of young boy, really. So he'd had time to see her, to watch her, to sort of fall in love with her. So, and I think that did happen, and they very much became a union, and very much sort of from this marriage, really of not convenience, but marriage of royal houses being brought together. I think by the time he did actually marry her, he had fallen in love with her, because look, we've got the Page of Cups here. I think that he loved her from being like 10 years old. When he first saw this Spanish princess coming over from, you know, these foreign parts and marrying his brother, I think that he was in love with her then. I think he always held, you know, that sort of deep feeling for her, even when he was a small boy. And as he grew older, you know, that grew. His brother had died, and he stepped into his shoes in what was, you know, this choice had been made for him, but I think he was happy to go along with it. And Queen of Swords, I don't know what her birth sign was, whether she was an air sign, but she was a very straight talking, very honest woman. You know, she didn't lie. She would tell Henry the truth, and I think she was one of the very few people around him that would actually tell him the truth and keep him grounded. And I know that when Henry was away fighting and things, she sort of basically ruled. So these are sort of very sort of just ruling things as well. She's a very, very capable woman. And lovers, look, they were together, and they had each other's backs, and it was a love match. Although it didn't originally start out to be that way, it was very much love. And then we have the Nine of Cups, and I think it was a very opulent, very indulgent marriage. I think whatever she wanted, she got. I think she was showered with anything she could have wanted. And let's face it, in Tudor court in those days, she could have had anything, and she did get everything. He just showered her with the most amazing gifts, the most amazing anything she wanted. So, yes, I think there's your answer to that. It was very much a marriage of love, and he did love her very much. So, you know, this whole marriage thing with Arthur, this original marriage that wasn't, according to the cards, consummated. Here we go. It wasn't consummated. This became very much the topic when Catherine could no longer have any more children. She'd had miscarriages. The only child she'd had was Princess Mary. I think she had a boy in the past, but he had died. So as other children. There have been quite a few miscarriages. And I want to know if if Catherine had given birth to a boy, to an heir, would that have changed things? How would Henry have been different? Would Henry still have been a tyrant? If Catherine had given birth to a son and heir, would he have stayed married to her? I don't doubt he would have had affairs. I don't doubt it at all. And she probably, would expect that he would. But I want to know whether he would have stayed married to her, not annulled the marriage, and, not been the tyrant, king. What would have happened had she given birth to a son who had lived? And of course, we'd be living probably in a very different world. Who knows? Who knows how things could have turned out differently? Maybe we wouldn't have Harry and Meghan. Who knows? So let's have a look. Interesting. How would Henry have been different? Would he have been a tyrant? Would he have been a tyrant? Have one more. Go for 4. I don't think he would have been. I think from this, he would have been he would have been a much nicer person to be around. He would have been a much easier going person. Had they had a son and had, the heir to the throne been all in place and that worry had gone from him, I just think he would have been a much more relaxed, much more jovial, a much different person to what he actually was. I think all of that, the sort of the swords here, the 8 of Swords, that's when you're a prisoner in your own mind. This is the torture he put upon himself, the distress of I have to have an heir, I have to have an heir. And in the Rider-Waite pack, it's the person who's blindfolded and tied in and surrounded by swords. This one looks like it's going to fall on swords, or she's going to fall on swords. It's very much you make a mental torture of your own mind. And this is what he did. Having a son became such a prison for him, something that he was so obsessed with having. And I think that if he'd had a son, this would not have been an issue. It would have all gone. This is letting go. So I don't think that would have been at his mind anymore. He would have the heir, and he wouldn't have been so obsessed about it. So no, I don't think that would have been a thing. And the Knight of Pentacles, just slow moving forward. I think everything with Henry was very frantic, and things, he always had to prove things. He had to prove his masculinity all the time. And I think that had the son been born through Catherine of Aragon, he could have not had this big macho trying to prove things all the time. The Knight of Pentacles is slow and steady. He's not a macho man. Your Knight of Wands, that's your passionate one. That's your one who's got to prove that he's got, all his manly bits functioning. This one doesn't. This one doesn't have to prove that. And I think that had an heir been born, he would not have been this this king that was always changing wives, trying to get them pregnant, trying to prove his masculinity. But I still think he would have had mistresses, because that's just the way he was. I think all these cups are choices. There would have been women in the court that he would have had affairs with, because that was his way. And I think that was almost expected of kings. That's what kings did. But there would not have been an annulment. And, he would have had his little dalliances with women in the courts. But the matter of Anne Boleyn would never have come up. And so we never would have had, Queen Elizabeth I or any of that. This son, this imaginary son, would have taken over the throne from Henry VIII, and Henry VIII wouldn't be known as this tyrant, this murderous king. So I think this is fascinating, and it all goes back to this here, doesn't it? With Catherine and Arthur originally, these 2 very young teenagers who never actually consummated their marriage, I believe, judging from the cards. But he used that, didn't he? He wanted to get rid of Catherine when she could no longer have any more children, and she hadn't produced the son that he wanted. He had to get rid of her, so annulling the marriage because she had been married to his brother, and in the eyes of the church, in the eyes of the Bible, that, you know, this was all wrong and that their marriage was cursed in some way. I just think this is fascinating. What a lovely layout from the cards. As I say, I'm not a historian. I probably have some of my facts a little bit skewed, so please forgive me if you know an awful lot about this. It was really what the cards said and the passion and the emotion in the cards that I wanted to get. So I think we've done that, and I really enjoyed doing that, and I hope you enjoyed watching that one. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.